Chris Duffin here. I am really excited. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've done an update on my video log, but I'm excited because we're bringing some changes that I think are going to be way more usable and useful to you. But it does mean the video log is going to be a bit more infrequent. So a couple things. You'll see a couple gentlemen sitting here with me. This is Brandon. If you watch any of my videos, I'm sure you've seen him before. He's our director of education and coaching and been my coach for 4 or 5 years, somewhere in that time frame.
Also your personal mentor, is that right?
Yeah, it's something like that. No, it goes the other way.
Oh.
Yeah. And newer addition, although he's been around Kabuki Strength and been working with us in some capacity or another for a few years. Coach Kyle over here, who's also background in massage therapy, coaching, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, there's a reason I've got them here. So we're going to be covering the training log on a mesocycle base. So we've got some goals and objectives over that period of time. So it's going to be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks posting, depending on the length of the mesocycle. And right now, this is all planning towards my next big and possibly final feat of strength next March, which is a very big squat. And I'll just leave it at that. That's my goal, a very big squat next March. It is more specific than that. And so Brandon heads up doing all the training and load management and long-term development planning around my training. And Kyle heads up doing all my soft tissue management and movement preparation as it needs, which there's a little bit less planning per se with some of that because it's just a little bit more of sometimes reactive, although we're trying to be less so of that as wherever possible. So we're just starting out right now in a general development block. We're 11 months out, and it's going to be a long ways before we get into the more specific strength phases. So Brandon, you want to talk a little bit about this mesocycle, what the goals and objectives have been during the course of it?
Yeah, well, as Chris mentioned, it is a general developmental block, which for us, that kind of has a floating definition. And there's a lot of things that can fit within that, being that it is kind of the base of our pyramid in terms of overall long-term planning. There's a lot of things that can fit into it. So for Chris right now, prior to that big squat, he has a couple other goals along the way, one of them being a big front squat.
Yes.
Which
does kind of tie in.
It does, yeah.
It's a movement that would feed into developing a big squat.
Yeah. So it works right now because Chris hasn't spent too much time squatting in the past however many months besides that 800 pounds every day. That was about the extent of your squatting for a while.
Yeah, so it was a year. Basically, I did a little bit of front squatting and stuff in the month or so prior leading to that. But for the most part, I hadn't really squatted for about a year prior to the 800 squat every day, and then afterwards, I didn't squat again. So it was all focused around deadlifting, the 880 deadlift challenge, which actually Kyle was involved with from the soft tissue side and some of the movement prep stuff. So that was the game plan. So just a little history background. Went up till October. I actually detached my semitendinosus hamstring muscle, and unfortunately, Kaiser insurance strung me along to the point that it can't get repaired anymore. So I'm missing a hamstring, which is unfortunate, and definitely will be affecting my deadlift training going forward. But I think we're going to be able to pull off the squat that we want to. And then because of that, while I was waiting to get it surgically reattached, which is what I was attempting to have done, unfortunately, their insurance plan was not supportive. I got lean, and that was part because I couldn't train heavy, and in part actually preparation for this goal. Because I knew I'm going to have to put on a lot of weight, and I want to get my body as responsive as possible to food and being able to bulk up and do it in an efficient manner without putting on too much fat. And I found really good success in getting lean and then coming back out of it. This time I actually stayed lean much longer. Normally before I've just taken a dive and then went straight back out of it. So I stayed down, total weight loss, and then stayed lean. It was about 6 months. I was walking around about 235. I'm back up in the 260s now over the course of starting this developmental block. But just a little bit of history there on some groundwork, because there has been a lot of work kind of leading into this.
I think moral of the story, you just haven't really been squatting.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, okay. I've not been squatting.
So the front squatting, there's nothing that's really magical about you doing it the way you do. You put your arms out straight because your arms don't bend.
I can't touch. Yeah.
And the front squat's nice because the ultimate loading potential of a front squat is obviously much less than a back squat for 99% of people. So it's going to allow you to strain against heavy weights, but it's not going to load your spine insanely hard like a back squat would. So as a reintroduction to squatting, it's probably not our starting point for the majority of people, but because you have the goal of front squatting, and we really don't want you to load your body insanely heavy right now, it suffices both of those things.
Yeah, and so I started actually around about a 500. Quickly in the first week or so, started getting up towards the upper 500s during this Meso-Cycle. It'd be a little hard for you to read this here, but essentially there was 2 squat days, although a little bit more squatting type work than just the 2 days in the program.
Well, the squatting, the front squatting is happening twice a week right now, which is about the max you can tolerate, although it's gotten quite a bit easier for you as the weeks go on and you adapt. All of the lower body accessory work is almost exclusively focused at building the quads and squatting patterns. So our current strategy is to, one, reintroduce squatting patterns such as the front squat, and then begin to build acute volume or work within the muscles that are used in squatting. So we're going to really smash your quads, do a little bit of hamstring work just for overall balance, and then we're going to be doing a lot of back work within that as well. So not to say that the back work is going to really closely carry over to the squat, but it's going to build hopefully acute tolerances within those muscles, so that when we do want to go and add more squat work, add transformer bar work, add back squat work, those tissues will be hopefully more adapt to tolerating that rather than just throwing you into the deep end early on.
Yeah. The first couple of weeks were pretty challenging. I mean, I was pretty sore, but acclimated pretty quick. But so, for example, you can actually see most of what a general week looks like right now. But it's on so there was a heavier day, working up to close to a maximal effort, and then another day where I would do doubles at a little bit less weight. So the first day is front squats heavy, followed by belt squats. It's a little bit lighter on this day, 3 sets of 10. Rear leg elevated split squats, single leg presses, and then following with Swiss ball hamstring curls is that first day. The second one is
barbell row, T-bar good morning.
Yeah.
And
So immediately the next day, barbell row, but you'll see, I noticed it's transformer bar good morning, so we're using the transformer bar. So again, working on those erectors, solidifying, strengthening that. Curls, just so I look good when I do presentations,
That is literally why they're in there.
That's literally, it is solely, I said it's for aesthetic. There's a few things I'm like, Brandon, these need in the program because I need to look the part. It's honest, let's just be honest. And then, so that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday's a little bit of an accessory day, some developmental stuff, but overhead tricep extensions, which actually is down here after pressing work. Shoulder rock anti-rotation, quadruped rows. So you've seen a lot of those videos, so a lot of back development. Oblique to bear, which is in our movement preparation on KMS. And then for pressing work, again, because it's just more of just for maintenance and aesthetics, we really don't have a lot of it called out. So Brandon just has any pressing work of my choice, 30 to 45 minutes. And then I threw in triceps on top of that, so for the arms, so pretty straightforward. And then
normally we wouldn't include much abdominal work for you or lower back work, but because of the absence of a lot of squatting and there not being a barbell on your back, it's probably going to be in our best interest to do a lot of that up front.
Yeah. And then this is the second squat day, would be front squats, Hatfield squats. So front squats was the 3 doubles, Hatfield squats, 2 sets of 6. Belt squats, this is heavier this day, so working up, you may not be able to see it, but Brandon has out the intensity labeled in here, which is actually given as reps in reserve. So this one is down to 1 to 2 reps left in reserve, 3 sets of 6, so heavier than the prior day. and then finishing that out with some bad girls for the glutes.
Normally for you, we prefer to use velocity if we can, but because there's so much variability in what's going to happen with the barbell in a front squat, the velocity measurements haven't been reliable enough to use, which is why we've opted to use reps and reserves.
Which is normally, so that's where this column here would be. Friday is all rowing work. Supposed to be machine rowing, and this was a miss on my part, could just be it getting cocky over the course of this plan, is I did some of that work as, I know when he put on here machine rowing, he wanted some sort of supported machine rowing, and I was choosing some other non-supported and did some heavier stuff. Ended up straining my bicep towards the end of the...
Oh, it's nice that you're confessing now on camera. I haven't heard this before.
I told you this. I told you this in my notes on my weekly log.
That's true.
So anyway, a lot of horizontal, mostly horizontal, one vertical, and then again, more curls. Yeah. Just keep the wife happy, gotta have big guns. Anyway.
Hey, better do some more work.
I know. And then the final day, so this is the sixth training day of the week, ab rollouts. So this is where Brandon said, we don't normally plan that in. Like if I'm deadlifting heavy or in the strength cycles, squatting heavy, like I'm not gonna put that, it's gonna get done, but because we're not like, I'm playing with, well now I'm in the mid 600s for front squat. So made a huge gain. I mean, I was shooting for trying to break a 600-pound front squat at the beginning of this Meso-Cycle. And now at the end of it, I was trying to break a 700 front squat. Not quite there, but some really tremendous progress over the course of that, particularly with the amount of volume accumulation in the program.
Close, what was your heaviest front squat in that cycle?
Finished up with 665, 300 kilos last night, and thought I was good for 685, but you know, it's just so much pressure. Actually staying conscious is a little bit of a, and then just the way I have to do them with no hands, like the minutest level of loss of position. So if we lose anything, it's over immediately. Unlike if you can still kind of push through something, but if it's just like just the minus, it's gone. Which in my videos you'll see a lot of dumps pretty regularly.
Which is also a good point because we're afforded the ability to go very, very heavy even though you haven't been squatting because we're really not straining against your maximal strength potential. It's positional loading that it's really working.
Which is going to pay off, right? I mean,
sure.
Really dialing in that position and having it is going to pay off in the long term. And let me tell you, like my lower, we were talking about this yesterday, I think, how my lower traps and everything is just like lit up all the time, even after the squat sessions of just trying to stay erect and stay perfectly in this position. But yeah, even though you see fails, and you see fails in the training log, it's not actually a muscular fail. I would never push a back squat that heavy repeatedly over and over, not even in it. Like it's very rarely you'll ever see me miss a back squat because I just won't push to that level. But final day, ab rollouts, bottoms up kettlebell walking. What's your goal with having that in there?
A big part of it, a big part of it was you wanting to train 6 days a week, and because you can't probably do too many other types of pressing, it was probably a good way to work on your obliques, and probably isn't going to accumulate too much in the long term, but it's something to throw in there as more of play than anything.
Yeah, I thought it was really good because I would notice if I'm getting locked down. Which for the front squat, it definitely forced me, like, I've got to be able to maintain position. So it was a really good, like, strength training tool, but that was also a corrective at the same time. And particularly combined with the ab rollouts, because again, maintaining this and using the shoulder correctly through the range of motion, I actually really enjoyed, and I almost thought about, like, placing those on that another day or talking to you about that. But obviously not as we get into heavier blocks. But I found a lot of benefit from that. And then same thing, just any pressing work. This is a bigger day. He lets me go for 45 minutes to an hour and a half for pressing work. And then I threw in some triceps again as well on that. So that's kind of what the week looks like. And like I said, a lot of progress. A big thing for me was acclimating and getting comfortable. I even had Kyle like catch me and like come here and coach me on good mornings. Like the first couple days that I was sessions that I did them because of the hamstring and the just not doing it so long. Bent over rows, I started really light on, just getting into that position and just getting over the fear and grooving the patterns and stuff like that was actually the first week I took pretty easy because I just really needed to get my head wrapped around this stuff and really get the patterns. And you had some feedback on that as well as like what you saw in my good morning, how I was trying to protect and.
Yeah, setting a quality movement base is definitely, a goal that we have for you at this point in time. And I thought it was interesting. I think it came up during our advanced athlete seminar. Too many athletes are worried about admitting pain from an injury and being scared to come in and not move correctly. But that's the time when I think we hurt ourselves the most. And that was one of the first things I saw from you. And it was cool to hear our athletes, or get our athletes to hear that, and for you to tell everybody that, everybody looks at you as imprintable Chris, but there's tension and some apprehension in that movement, which changes your whole structure and how you move.
I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, I was flat out I looked at the program, I'm like, some of these movements really scare me right now. And I started lowering the bar and moving it. And I'm like, I'm just not mentally ready, and I've got to build my tolerance. I've got to start with something I feel is appropriate and then move. It doesn't matter what level what I've gotten to in the past. I was doing good mornings with 300 pounds that first week. That's all I felt comfortable with.
A little apprehensive with 300 pounds too.
Yeah, I was. They were not good looking ones. Until you actually, I got you and then you made me correct it, which is why I grabbed you.
Yep. So, compared to where they're at now, they look pretty good. Yep. And that's the more global thing that I hear from you, Brandon, and our goal with some of the tissue work is just to start to build tolerance within some of these movements and get the best base that we can, so we're building an amazing foundation for some exciting things to happen.
From a soft tissue movement preparation standpoint, one of the big issues I ran into, which I think we're finally starting to move through, the front squats unfortunately have a little bit more knee travel than a traditional squat, and I'm missing one of those muscles that stabilizes this joint. So my calf on this side really just started locking down. My ankle got locked up, my feet got locked up, and so I actually started getting some major strains and stuff through the gastroc, the soleus, the peroneals. All of this was pretty bad, and we've kind of gotten that all calmed down and worked through. But we had to work through it because that muscle was trying to come on and stabilize it. It's also why I'm wearing knee wraps for front squats, which I've only ever done sleeves before. But it's a mental thing for me, just to have that compression around that joint that is potentially compromised.
Yeah, well, we're missing some important structures there, so we'll take the extra support, because the goal is not, the end goal is not a giant front squat. That's going to happen along the way, so we got to keep the end goal in mind and protect that structure so we can hit the long-term goal.
What are some of the soft tissue stuff you've been doing with Chris?
Yeah, soft tissue is interesting in the fact that we have a game plan. Chris and I have a game plan mapped out to make it all the way to the end goal. However, it's going to be a little bit more reactionary. We want to clean up some old injuries. We have the hamstring. Yep. We have plenty of other stuff that you've done to your body over the years.
Yep.
But, again, talking about your calf, it's not normal that I see any problems or deviation in your foot. And I pointed that out the other day in your squat. That's the first time I've seen lack of quality rooting in all the years that I've known you. Mm-hmm. And then we started to address it. Yes, then all of a sudden issues start coming up in the calf, gastroc, hamstring, peroneals, all that. So getting that cleaned out so we get back to your base level of quality movement.
Yep.
And then things like the bicep all of a sudden throws a wrench in things. So we're a little bit more reactionary. Part of it's kind of an exploration for us too. But generally, we need to get Chris back into the best potential positions for him to squat in. And you'll hear that with what Brandon's doing too, trying to get patterns to the best of our ability so we have the best pattern to grow from moving forward. So a little bit of exploration at this point in time, clearing up old injuries, and then a little triage of what comes up along the way. Because Chris is, even though it's a lighter front squat, right, for Chris, we're definitely pushing the envelope, and we'll continue to throughout the next 11 months.
Yep. Okay, I think that wraps up the discussion pretty well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So really hope this new format will be usable. We'll try to structure a little bit more with getting some filming of like all the accessories. I didn't capture all of them this month, so you will see that going forward. But feedback is appreciated. So
And some more specifics on tissue work that we're doing as well.
Yep. All right.